Hello, this is RV Vagabond Jerry, and today I want to talk about my favorite places to boondock or lot dock in the winter along the southern states from Florida to California. Now, by the way, the word boondock is misused very often. Boondocking means docking out in the boonies. Outside of the city, outside of any highly populated area, just pretty much anywhere out what you might call in the boonies without any hookups. Lot docking is pretty much when you do the same thing in town or someplace where you're just spending the night in a parking lot. So this video will cover both boondocking and lot docking, my favorite places, and I'm going to give them to you in order starting from the most far east in Florida to the most far west in California. So let's start off in the Florida Keys. The island and the city of Marathon. It's about 48 miles before getting to Key West. Now in Key West, finding places to boondock or lot dock is going to be very difficult. Chances are you're going to be chased out from wherever you are. So when I went there, I realized that, and I lucked out and found this good place on the island of Marathon, where I could use that as my base, which I did for 4 or 5 days. And then each day when I went into Key West, I just rode my motorcycle from Marathon to Key West, which you could do with your car or whatever. That way, you've got a safe place, you know you're allowed to stay, and then you've got this other transportation to go to Key West and other things. There's also some things to see in the town of Marathon. And of all these places I'm going to give you, I'm going to put a link below in the video description below of videos that I did at each one of these locations, except for the last 2, which are just casinos. So the place in Marathon is the First Baptist Church, and they do allow RVers to park in their parking lot there. You just offer them $10 or $20 a day, and they'll be happy to let you use their parking lot. And also, whenever you're going into a city, probably late in the day, you haven't made arrangements, and you're kind of a little desperate for some place to stay, a good place to look at is churches. Find a big church that's got a big parking lot, and just pull in at late at night. There's not going to be anybody there to even need to ask, and then you leave the next morning. So no harm done. So that's a good backup when you haven't made any plans. Now here, this is specifically allowed by the people who run the church. Like I said, just offer them a donation and they'll be happy to let you stay. So let me show you on the map where it is. There is the church, and there is their parking lot. It's a fairly small parking lot, and you can see there is an RV parked there on the corner, and it's on 62nd Street, just a block off of the main highway that goes through the island. Marathon is a very small town. It does have several churches, and there's another church called the Marathon Baptist Church. Now, don't get it confused with that one. You want to go to the one that is on 62nd Avenue. The other churches, they may or may not let you camp there. I don't know, but I know this one does because I've done it myself. Now for my next location, I'm going to move all the way to Louisiana. And I spent a whole winter camping around New Orleans, and I stayed at a lot of different places, some places with hookups and some without. I found 2 really good lot docking spots I want to tell you about in case you're going through New Orleans in the winter and you don't need hookups. The first one is called the Irish Bayou Truck Stop and Casino. And one I wanted to show you is on the northeast side of New Orleans, right here, just before crossing the bridge over Lake Pontchartrain into Slidell. And right there, let me show you a close-up. I normally don't like truck stops, but this one I really like. It's a small one, but it has a really nice long parking lot. You can see a couple trucks there. So I parked all the way down right there. The problem with truck stops, one is they're so noisy with the trucks coming and going and running their diesel engines all night. The trucks tend to park close to the building, so they got a short walk. But if you go all the way down to this end of the parking lot, it's pretty quiet. So I spent several days just parked right there. And by the way, just a short, almost a walking distance down, is the Fisherman's Castle at Irish Bayou, which is a very curious little castle-like building right on the bayou there. So that's a nice thing to stop and see. The other place I wanted to show you is south of New Orleans at the Boomtown Casino, which is in the town of Harvey, Louisiana, just across the Mississippi River, directly south of New Orleans. And the nice thing about the Boomtown Casino is they've got a really large parking lot, and right here you can see a couple trucks. They have designated truck and RV parking in this area right here. And not only that, but they do not have a limit as to how long you can stay there. I couldn't believe it, but I asked them in the security, and they told me, I asked them, how long can I stay? And they said, we don't have a limit. So I stayed there several times during that winter, as long as about a week, just in that one spot, and nobody ever knocked on my door. No hookups, but they have a trash dumpster to get rid of your garbage, and they've got a couple nice restaurants inside the casino there. Now for the next several locations, we're going to move into the state of Texas, mostly right along the coast, beach camping. It's right here, directly south of Houston, just down from the town of Lake Jackson, pretty good sized town with the Walmart. And here it says, Brazoria County Beach, free camping. Anywhere along here that is north of the town of Surfside Beach, around along here, and you'll see a sign where the Surfside city beaches start. You cannot camp overnight on the beaches that are inside the city limits of Surfside Beach. Now the best way to find it coming from Surfside is to turn off from the road towards the beach on Seagull Avenue. Then just drive your RV right along the beach here, and you'll come to a sign that says city limits. Anywhere north of the city limit sign is where you can camp for free. They do have a 14-day limit, but it's completely free, and it's safe enough to drive along the beach. Just don't get too far off into the dunes. You can get pretty close to the water. The sand is very hard there, but it's when you get to the beach level, the sand is pretty nice. And this is open ocean, so you get some pretty strong waves there. If you like to play in the waves, that's the place to go. Now the next location is pretty much my favorite, place to beach camp. It's a little kind of jagged in and out road, but it takes you to the town of Port Lavaca, and just south of there is Magnolia Beach and Indianola Beach. I really like those two. If I'm going in the winter, I prefer Magnolia Beach. If I'm going in the summer, where I'm going to be going in swimming, I prefer Indianola Beach. Now, one thing I like about this area is that it's not on the open ocean. It's inside of this bay, and that means that the water is very calm. And when I go out into the water to cool off and play around, I like the calm water more than the big waves to fight the waves. I like the peace and calmness that it has there. And you are allowed to RV camp there for free for up to 14 days. Next is Port Aransas, a little ways south of there. Now, Port Aransas is on an island, and there is a ferry to cross the inland waterway there, which usually you can take large RVs across, but I've been there a couple times when they said the water level was too low to cross. And if that's the case, then to get to Port Aransas, you have to go all the way around to Corpus Christi, and they have a bridge that goes over to Mustang Island here, and then you go up from there to Port Aransas. So if they say the ferry is not accessible because of the water level, that's your only choice. It's extra miles, but that's the only other way to get there. Now, in Port Aransas, you are allowed to camp your RV overnight for up to 3 nights in a row anywhere along the beach there until you get to the pier. And the pier is right about there. Now, to be allowed to park on the beach, you have to have a permit. So here's the information about the permits. They are good for a calendar year. So if you get one December 15th, it's only going to be good for 2 weeks. Now, from the pier, which is right here, going north, this is county property where you do not need a permit at all. Now, if you go all the way to the north, this is the jetty. These are all cars parked right up against the jetty. I've been here several times, and I always park my RV right about here. Now, the thing is, even though you don't need a permit, officially, you're not allowed to park overnight. However, the times I've been there, I've always parked right up at the jetty, and I've stayed anywhere from 2 to one time I stayed a whole week parked right at the jetty there, and no one ever knocked on my door. So I think the county just does not patrol that area looking for overnight parkers, except maybe in the summer. I've always been there in the winter, and maybe they just don't pay much attention to it in the winter. The jetty goes all the way out here, which becomes a fishing pier out into the water. So officially, you're not allowed to camp overnight on the county portion of the beach. Anywhere along here you can park for the day, but not for the night officially. But I've always ignored that and parked right here anyway for several days in a row, and I have never been bothered. Now, at the Port Aransas beaches, they do have restrooms, outside showers, and garbage barrels to put your trash in. It's on the open ocean, so the waves are going to be a lot stronger than at Magnolia. And by the way, at Magnolia Beach, the internet is, I would say, just fair for how good the internet speed is. At Port Aransas, it's a lot better. So if you do park at the jetty overnight, and if by chance someone does knock on your door and say you're not allowed to stay here overnight, no problem. You just pack up and leave. You can go to Magnolia, or you can go anywhere else along the beach where you're not going to be bothered. There's also a lot of RV parks along Port Aransas and going south towards Corpus Christi. So if you are kicked out, there are places you can go to finish off the night before you move on the next day. Now the next place I'm going to show you is called Malaquite Campground. It's part of the Padre Island National Seashore, and there is a fee, which is $14 a night. If you have a Senior National Parks Pass, then it's half price, $7 a night. You're allowed to stay there for 14 days. And it's open ocean, so you're going to get some strong waves there. So let me show you on the map where that is. You just take the highway south from Port Aransas, and you go a little further south than Corpus Christi. Just continue along the beach road there, and it is right there. So let me show you a close-up of that. Now the good news is that the campground is paved. The bad news is all you get is a concrete picnic table, which you see what those things are there. Those are the picnic tables. There's no hookups. It's a short walk to the beach. And here is the dump station and freshwater fill station. Now when I go there, I usually only stay a day or two because the internet is terrible at this campground. It's fairly close to Corpus Christi, so I don't know why that is, but somehow the internet just barely makes it to the Malaquite campground. They have this walkway here that goes out to the beach. There's the restroom buildings, and they have outdoor showers. If they would just get better internet there, I would like it so much better. My next favorite place is in Corpus Christi. It's called Levante Park. Now, Corpus Christi generally is not a very RV-friendly town. Finding places to park overnight is not easy. But in the northwest corner of Corpus Christi is Levante Park in an area called Cow Allen. So it's this odd-shaped park here. And the reason why I like Levante Park is not only is it right along a big river here, but it also is at the confluence of another river coming into it. And each one of these, you see, is a camping spot. And you're allowed to camp there for 3 days. You do need a permit. It's a free permit. And after your 3 days, you can apply for an additional 3 days. So you can stay there up to 6 days. So this free RV camping spot in Corpus Christi is quite a gem. There's no hookups. It does have picnic tables at most of the campsites. There's a restroom, and there are trash barrels you can use. The picnic tables are covered. A lot of people go fishing right near the bridge there, and that bridge is Interstate 37. So when I go to Corpus Christi in the winter, don't need air conditioning, that's a really nice place to camp. The next place I like is a little way south of Corpus Christi and Levante Park. It's south of Kingsville, where there's a Walmart, It's the Riviera Fishing Pier. Let me show you that. It's a paved parking lot. There's a restroom building right there. There's a trash dumpster. And there's a really long fishing pier there. And just a very short walking distance up the road is the Baffin Bay Seafood Restaurant and Tutors, which is a bar. So you've got a place to go and eat. I've been there, I think, 3 or 4 times during my travels. It's a nice little camping spot, paved, restroom, but no hookups. But the internet is pretty good, so I like it. Next, we're moving way out west to the town of Del Rio, which you may have heard of on the news last year. And I'm a big fan of lot docking overnight at Walmarts. And I'm choosing the Del Rio Walmart as representative of Walmarts in general because this is my favorite Walmart. Let me show you why. On the south side of the store, over here, they have some really long parking stalls, several of them along here, for RVs. And in fact, in front of each one of these long parking stalls, they have painted on the pavement there the words RV parking only, specially designated for RVs. Now, that doesn't mean people don't violate that and have trucks parked there, I guess, who self-identify as RVs, and some people will park cars there. But this is extremely rare to have a Walmart parking lot with designated RV parking, long parking stalls. Now, for my next place, we moved to Arizona. About 135 miles directly west of Phoenix, right on Interstate 10, is a place called the Magic Circle. It's 2.5 miles south of the town of Quartzsite, at the La Posa South BLM Long-Term Visitor Area, it's called. There's a La Posa North, a La Posa West. You want the La Posa South to get to the Magic Circle. Now look what happens when I zoom in on there. The circle, the Magic Circle, will show up right there. And this is a tent, a big tent that is constructed by an organization called the Naturist Society. And this whole area around it, where I'm showing on the map here, that whole area is designated by the BLM as being a clothing optional camping area. So yes, this is where the nudists gather together so that they can camp, and they have social activities and meals and parties and all sorts of things. Well, not all sorts of things, but a lot of social activities inside that big tent in the area that's called the Magic Circle. Now, the BLM charges $40 for 14 days to stay at any one of their long-term visitor areas, and you can switch from one long-term visitor area to another. Like I said, there's several of them in and around Quartzsite, and that is true boondocking. That is out in the boonies. However, for your $40, you do get some services. They have a dump station, they have a freshwater fill station, and they have trash dumpsters, and they have several restroom buildings. Now, the internet there can be fairly good after midnight. There are about 750,000 people in and around Quartzsite during the winter. During the summer, it is blazing hot, so nobody comes there in the summer. But in the winter, the town population bumps up to over 700,000. You get that many people sharing the internet, it's going to be fairly slow. Now, I would never go to any of the other long-term visitor areas. There's nothing special about them except they have the same services. I would only come to the Magic Circle area because that's what I like. There are other BLM lands around Quartzsite where you can camp for free. You do need a permit because they don't want you staying more than 14 days, but they're free permits outside of the long-term visitor areas. And I have been to those a couple times, well, one specifically, because that's where a lot of the RV clubs meet once a year to have their campouts in one of the BLM areas on the north side of town that is free camping. But since I'm actually a nudist, I go to the Magic Circle. Now next, I'm going to show you a couple casinos that allow overnight parking in their parking lots. One is in Las Vegas and one is in California. Now the strange thing is that outside of Nevada, where there are numerous casinos all over the country, I would say about 90% of them welcome RV travelers to park overnight for free in their parking lots. But when it comes to Nevada, they don't really cotton to that. It's really hard to find a casino anywhere in Nevada that welcomes RVers to park overnight. And in Las Vegas, I only know of one of them. From Las Vegas downtown, you go down the strip, and then a few blocks off of the strip to the west is the Orleans Hotel and Casino. They do allow RVs to park overnight. I think it's not terribly official, but I've talked to other people and they say they've parked there overnight for a few nights and never been bothered. Apparently, if you go in and ask, they'll say no, but if you just stay there anyway, they won't say anything. It's kind of like a don't ask, don't tell type situation. So the last location I'm going to tell you about is in the Palm Springs, California area, from Palm Springs to Indio. There are other casinos in the Palm Springs area, but the only two that I know of that actually allow overnight parking is the Fantasy Springs Casino there, and the one I like the most is the Spotlight 29 Casino. They have a paved parking lot that they have a sign there that specifically allows RVs to park overnight, and you don't want to park there too many nights in a row. I think it may be limited to 3 from what I remember, but when I stayed there for like 2 weeks one time, I would switch between Spotlight 29 and Fantasy Springs. Now here, the place that they have for RVs to park is in a dirt lot across the road back behind the casino. And the restaurants in Fantasy Springs are fairly expensive. There's a few different restaurants there. But I prefer the Spotlight 29 because it's not only paved, but they have a buffet there that only costs, I think it's like $14 or something. So I'll eat at least one meal there a day in their buffet. So these two casinos are RV friendly. Like I said, I much prefer Spotlight 29, but when I'm in the Palm Springs area and I want to kill a few days or a week or two, I kind of just switch between those two. And then sometimes from Indio at those two casinos, I'll go south a ways to the Red Earth Casino, which is at Salton Sea Beach right there. And that's an RV friendly casino. So when I want to kill some time in Southern California, that is where I go. Well folks, those are my 14 most favorite places to boondock or lot dock in the winter between Florida and California. So if you spend your winter in the southern states in your RV because you want to be places where you get some pretty decent weather and not have to worry about freezing at least, then I think this will help you in your travels as well. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please let me know your comments in the section below. Good day, folks.